The morning sky above New York City changed forever on March 15, 2157, Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his patrol ship, watching the radar screen with growing confusion. Something massive was coming through Earth's atmosphere, but it didn't look like any ship he had ever seen. "Sir, we're getting readings that don't make sense," said Lieutenant Karen Foster, her voice tight with worry. "The object is there, but our scanners keep saying it's not there at the same time." Jake looked out the window and saw it with his own eyes. A crystal structure the size of a city block floated above Manhattan. It seemed to be made of pure light, shifting between solid and transparent. More ships like it appeared over London, Tokyo, Moscow, and every major city on Earth. "All units, open fire," Jake ordered into his radio. He watched as dozens of human ships unleashed their weapons at the strange visitors. Laser beams, missiles, and plasma charges flew toward the crystal ships, but nothing hit them. The weapons passed right through, as if the ships were made of air. Down on Earth, people stopped what they were doing and looked up at the sky. Traffic came to a halt. Children pointed from school playgrounds. Emergency sirens wailed in every city as governments tried to figure out what was happening. Then the voices came. Not through radios or speakers, but directly into every human mind on the planet. The voice was deep and calm, speaking in whatever language each person understood best. "People of Earth, do not fear. We are the Ethereals, and we have come to guide you. For too long, your species has struggled in darkness. We are here to bring you into the light." Jake felt the voice in his head like a warm breeze. It was comfortable and made him want to listen. He shook his head hard, trying to clear his thoughts. "This isn't right," he said to his crew. "Stay alert. Don't trust whatever this is," the voice continued. "I am Zarthan, first among the Ethereals. We have watched your world for many centuries. Your wars, your suffering, your confusion about your place in the universe. All of this ends today. We offer you peace, wisdom, and purpose under our guidance." One of the crystal ships descended toward Central Park in New York. As it landed, the light around it grew brighter. A figure emerged from the ship that made everyone who saw it gasp in wonder. The being was 12 feet tall, with skin that glowed like starlight. It wore robes that seemed to be made of liquid silver, and its eyes held the depth of space itself. "Behold," the voice of Zarthan said. "Witness our divine nature." The tall being raised one hand toward a nearby hospital. Through the windows, people could see something amazing happening. Patients who had been sick for years suddenly sat up in their beds, completely healthy. A man who had been blind since birth opened his eyes and saw for the first time. A child with a broken leg watched as the cast fell away and her bone became perfect again. The crowds gathering in Central Park fell to their knees. Many began to cry with joy. They had never seen anything like this. The being in front of them had just healed hundreds of people with a simple gesture. On Luna Station, high above Earth, Admiral Lisa Carter watched the events through her command center's screens. Unlike most humans, she did not feel the warm comfort that came with the ethereal voices. Instead, she felt suspicious. "Get me Dr. Ben Rodriguez," she told her aide. "I want our best scientists looking at this right now." Dr. Rodriguez arrived at the command center within minutes. He was a thin man with gray hair who had spent his life studying quantum physics. He looked at the data coming from Earth with interest rather than wonder. "What do you think, Ben?" Admiral Carter asked. "I think we need to be very careful," he replied. "These readings are impossible according to everything we know about science. But impossible doesn't mean supernatural. It might just mean we don't understand their technology yet." Back on Earth, more ethereals appeared in major cities around the world. Each one performed what looked like miracles. They made food appear from nothing to feed hungry crowds. They lifted entire buildings into the air and set them down gently somewhere else. They stopped time in small areas, freezing raindrops in mid-air while they spoke to amazed onlookers. Within hours, news channels around the world were calling them gods. Religious leaders from every faith gathered to discuss what this meant. Some said these beings were angels sent by the divine. Others claimed they were the gods themselves, finally revealing their true forms to humanity. Commander Amy Walsh led a small unit of soldiers in Washington, D.C. She watched as government officials lined up to meet with the ethereal who had landed near the Capitol building. One by one, these powerful human leaders bowed down before the glowing figure. "This is wrong," Amy whispered to her sergeant, Tony Miller. "Since when do we bow to anyone?" "But Commander," Tony replied, "look what they can do." "Maybe they really are gods," Amy shook her head. "Gods or not, I don't like the way they just showed up and expected us to worship them. Real gods wouldn't need to demand respect." By the end of the first day, the ethereals had made their message clear. They were superior beings who had come to rule over humanity for humanity's own good. They established themselves in the most important buildings in every major city. They spoke of bringing order to human chaos and ending the struggles that had plagued the species for millennia. Jake Morrison flew his ship back to Earth that evening, his mind full of questions. He had seen his crew members looking at the ethereals with worship in their eyes. He had watched as his own weapons became useless against beings who could simply choose not to be affected by them, but something deep inside him refused to accept what he was seeing. His grandmother had always told him that if something seemed too good to be true, it probably was. These ethereals offered everything humanity had ever wanted: peace, health, prosperity, and answers to all their questions. The price was simple, absolute faith and complete obedience. As Jake looked up at the crystal ships floating above Earth's cities, their light casting strange shadows across the planet, he made a decision: he would not kneel. Not yet, not until he understood what humanity was really being offered, and what they would have to give up to get it. The age of human independence was ending, but Jake Morrison was not ready to let it go without a fight. 6 months had passed since the ethereals arrived, and Earth looked like a completely different world. Golden temples rose from the centers of major cities, their crystal spires reaching toward the sky like fingers of light. Humans dressed in white robes walked the streets, carrying offerings to their new divine rulers. The world government had been replaced by something called the Divine Council. Patricia Chun, who used to be the head of the United Nations, now wore silver robes and called herself the first speaker for humanity. She gave daily broadcasts explaining how blessed you humans were to receive the guidance of the ethereals. "The old ways brought us nothing but war and sadness," Patricia said during her morning address. "Now we have peace. Now we have purpose. The ethereals have shown us the path to true happiness." But not everyone was happy with the new world order. Hidden in an asteroid mining station beyond Mars, Admiral Lisa Carter looked at reports from her secret agents on Earth. The news was not good. Anyone who spoke against the ethereals disappeared within days. Entire families vanished if they refused to attend daily prayer sessions. The faithful, as they called themselves, turned in their own neighbors for showing doubt. "How many ships do we have left?" Lisa asked Colonel Steve Baker, her second in command. 47 vessels scattered across the outer system," Steve replied. "Most of our crews are loyal, but we're running low on supplies. The Earth stations won't trade with us anymore." Dr. Ben Rodriguez entered the meeting room carrying a data pad full of numbers and charts. He looked tired but excited. "I think, I've found something important," he said. Lisa leaned forward. "What kind of something?" "I've been studying the energy readings from every ethereal demonstration for the past 6 months," Ben explained. "Their powers aren't random. There are patterns. Mathematical patterns that suggest technology, not magic." He activated a holographic display showing waveforms and energy signatures. "Look at this. Every time they heal someone, the quantum field around them shifts in exactly the same way. When they lift objects, the gravitational distortion follows precise calculations. This isn't divine power. It's very advanced science." Steve frowned. "Even if that's true, how does it help us? We can't fight their science with our weapons." "Maybe. We can't fight their technology," Lisa said slowly, "but we might be able to understand it. And if we understand it, we might find weaknesses. Meanwhile, on Earth, Lieutenant Karen Foster had taken the most dangerous assignment possible. She had pretended to become one of the faithful and now worked as a guard in the New York Temple. Every day she watched humans bow down before Zarthan and other ethereals, bringing them gifts and begging for blessings. The temple was built around the original crystal ship that had landed in Central Park. The ship itself served as the altar, where the most important ceremonies took place. Karen had been trying for weeks to get closer to it, but only the highest-ranking faithful were allowed near the divine presence. Her chance came during the Festival of Ascension, a ceremony where selected humans were chosen to join the ethereals in their ships. These lucky individuals were said to become part of the divine realm, serving the gods directly. Karen watched as 20 people were called forward. Men, women, and children from all walks of life stepped up to the crystal ship. They looked happy, honored to be chosen. One by one, they walked into the ship and disappeared in flashes of light. "Behold," Zarthan announced to the crowd, "these blessed souls have been elevated beyond mortal concerns. They now exist in perfect harmony with divine will." The crowd cheered and wept with joy. But Karen noticed something that bothered her. As each person entered the ship, she caught a glimpse of what looked like a scanning beam. It passed over them quickly, but it reminded her of the medical scanners used in hospitals. After the ceremony, Karen managed to slip away from the main group. She found a maintenance passage that led to the upper levels of the temple. From there, she could see down into the ship through a clear panel. What she saw inside made her heart race with fear. The 20 people who had been ascended were not gone. They were lying unconscious in crystal chambers that hummed with energy. Wires and tubes connected to their heads, and strange symbols flowed across screens beside each chamber. It looked more like a laboratory than a divine realm. Karen quickly took pictures with a tiny camera hidden in her robes. She had to get this information to the Resistance, but she also needed to see more. If the ethereals were lying about ascension, what other lies were they telling? Over the next few weeks, Karen carefully explored more of the temple during quiet hours. She discovered that the ethereals had private areas where humans were not allowed. Through hidden gaps in the walls, she watched the beings when they thought. No one could see them. They were different when alone. Less majestic. Sometimes their glowing skin would flicker like a broken light bulb. She saw one ethereal remove what looked like a helmet, revealing a face that was far less perfect than what humans usually saw. Another seemed to be recharging itself at a wall socket, connecting cables to ports hidden under its robes. The most shocking discovery came when she followed a service tunnel deep into the ship. In a room filled with screens and control panels, she saw ethereals studying human behavior like scientists studying lab rats. They had detailed files on every person in the city, tracking their thoughts, fears, and desires. Subject group shows 97% compliance with suggestion protocols, one ethereal said to another. Resistance pockets remain in 3% of population. Recommend. Increased psychic pressure. Agreed, the second ethereal replied. The neural mapping from recent ascensions provides useful data. Human consciousness is more complex than previous species, but still manageable. Karen had heard enough. She made her way back to her quarters and activated a hidden communication device. It would take hours for her message to reach the resistance bases, but Admiral Carter needed to know what she had discovered. Far from Earth, Commander Amy Walsh led a supply run to one of the hidden resistance bases on Europa. The ice moon of Jupiter had become home to thousands of humans who refused to accept ethereal rule. Life was hard there, with limited food and constant cold, but the people were free. "Any word from our agents on Earth?" asked Captain Billy Murphy. "The base commander, Karen Foster, sent a message," Amy replied. "The ascension ceremony isn't what they claim. The chosen ones are being taken for experiments, not elevated to divine status." Billy shook his head in anger. "We knew something was wrong, but this is worse than we thought. Those people trust the ethereals completely." "That's exactly the problem," Amy said. "The ethereals don't rule through force. They rule through faith. People want to believe in them. Back in the asteroid base, Dr. Rodriguez made another breakthrough. While analyzing Karen's photographs, he noticed something crucial about the ethereal technology. The energy patterns weren't just advanced science. They were dependent on something external. "Lisa, you need to see this," he called to Admiral Carter. "The ethereal power sources aren't self-contained. They're drawing energy from somewhere else." Lisa studied the data. "Where are they getting it from?" "I think from the humans themselves," Ben said quietly. "Not their bodies, but their minds. Every time a group of people worships them, the energy readings spike. The more people believe in them, the stronger they become." The implications hit Lisa like a physical blow. "You're saying they feed on human worship?" "It's more than that," Ben explained. "I think they need it to survive. Without human faith, their technology might not work at all." This discovery changed everything. The ethereals weren't just rulers demanding obedience. They were parasites, feeding on human belief. But proving this to a world that wanted to worship them would be the hardest battle the Resistance had ever fought. Meanwhile, Patricia Chun stood before Zarthan in the main temple, receiving her daily instructions for governing humanity. She felt blessed to serve such perfect beings, never knowing that each prayer she offered made them stronger, and each doubt she abandoned made humanity weaker. The war for Earth's freedom had begun, but it would not be fought with weapons. It would be fought with truth against faith, knowledge against belief, and the human spirit against those who claim to be gods. Dr. Ben Rodriguez had not slept in 3 days. His laboratory on the asteroid base was covered with papers, charts, and holographic displays showing energy patterns from across the solar system. He had been studying every piece of data about the ethereals that the Resistance had collected, and finally he found the key. "Admiral Carter, please come quickly," he said into his communication device. "I know how they do it." Lisa Carter arrived within minutes, followed by Colonel Steve Baker and several other Resistance leaders. Ben looked at them with tired but excited eyes. "It's dimensional technology," he explained, pointing to a complex diagram. "The ethereals exist partially in our dimension and partially in another one. That's why our weapons pass through them. They can choose which dimension to be solid in." Steve scratched his head. "That still doesn't tell us how to fight them." "But it does," Ben said with growing excitement. "Their technology needs massive amounts of energy to work. They get some of it from their home dimension, but they need more. That's where human worship comes in. Every time someone prays to them or believes they are gods, it creates psychic energy that powers their systems." Lisa began to understand. "So, if people stopped believing in them, their power would weaken dramatically," Ben finished. "Maybe enough for us to actually hurt them." At that moment, an urgent message came through from Earth. Lieutenant Karen Foster had new information from inside the temple. Her voice crackled through the communication system from millions of miles away. "Admiral, I've discovered something terrible. The ethereals have been lying about everything. The ascended humans aren't in heaven. They're in holding cells being studied like lab animals. I've seen the chambers where they keep them." Karen's report sent shockwaves through the Resistance leadership, but she had more to tell them. "I followed one of the ethereals to a restricted area of the ship. They have a massive database with information about thousands of different alien species. Each file shows the same pattern: arrival, worship, conquest, and then abandonment. They've done this before many times." Lisa felt her anger growing. "How many worlds? Hundreds?" Karen replied. "Maybe thousands. They find planets with intelligent life, pretend to be gods, rule for a few centuries, and then move on when they've learned everything they want to know about that species." This revelation changed everything the Resistance thought they knew about their enemy. The ethereals weren't just invaders. They were cosmic parasites who had been using the same trick across the galaxy for millions of years. Captain Jake Morrison had been listening to the conversation from his ship. He had an idea that was either brilliant or completely insane. "Admiral, request permission to attempt a reconnaissance mission to one of their ships," he said. Absolutely not, Lisa replied immediately. It's too dangerous. Ben's research shows their ships exist in multiple dimensions, Jake explained. What if we modify one of our stealth ships to match their dimensional frequency? We might be able to get inside without them knowing. Dr. Rodriguez looked up from his calculations. Theoretically, it could work, but the energy requirements would be enormous, and we'd only have a few minutes before the ship's power gave out. Lisa thought about the risk. They needed more information about ethereal technology, but sending someone into their ships would be like walking into the mouth of a dragon. After a long moment, she made her decision. Do it, but Jake, you get one chance. If anything goes wrong, we can't come save you. It took 2 weeks to modify Jake's ship with Ben's dimensional technology. The work was dangerous and complicated. 3 times. Test runs nearly destroyed the entire asteroid base when the dimensional fields became unstable. Finally, the ship was ready. Jake climbed into the pilot's seat knowing he might not come back. His crew consisted of Lieutenant Foster, who had secretly left Earth to join the mission, and Sergeant Tony Miller, an explosives expert who could plant tracking devices if they found anything important. The target was the main ethereal command ship in orbit around Earth. It was 10 times larger than any human vessel and seemed to be made of living crystal that shifted and flowed like water. Dimensional field is stable, Jake reported as they approached the alien ship. Beginning phase transition in 3, 2, 1. The human ship flickered and became transparent, matching the dimensional frequency that Ben had calculated. They passed through the outer hull of the ethereal vessel like ghosts walking through a wall. Inside, they found wonders and horrors beyond imagination. The ship was filled with what looked like a vast museum. Thousands of display cases contained artifacts from different worlds. Weapons, artwork, technology, and preserved specimens from species across the galaxy. Each display had a sign written in flowing ethereal script. "My God," whispered Karen Foster. "Look at this." She was pointing at a section that contained items from a world called Zentara. According to the display, the Zentrans had been a peaceful species that lived in harmony with nature. The ethereals had arrived claiming to be forest spirits, ruled them for 800 years, and then left when they grew bored. The entire civilization had collapsed without their divine guidance. Another section showed relics from the Vorthak Empire, a military society that had conquered half their galaxy before the ethereals arrived pretending to be war gods. They had convinced the Vorthak to turn their weapons on themselves in religious conflicts, destroying their entire species in just 50 years. "They're collectors," Tony Miller said with disgust. "They collect civilizations like trophies." Jake led them deeper into the ship, following a corridor that pulsed with soft light. They found laboratories filled with examination tables and surgical equipment. Screens showed detailed analyses of different alien biologies, including human anatomy, but the most shocking discovery was in the central chamber of the ship. There, in a room the size of a cathedral, they found the truth about the ethereals themselves. Dozens of the beings floated in cylindrical tanks filled with glowing liquid. But these weren't the majestic gods that humans worshipped. They were withered, ancient creatures with gray skin and hollow eyes. Mechanical devices kept them alive and functioning. "They're dying," Karen said in amazement. They're all dying." Computer screens around the room showed medical data. The ethereals were an ancient race whose bodies had begun failing millions of years ago. Their technology kept them alive, but they needed constant energy to maintain their systems. The worship of other species provided that energy. Jake recorded everything they saw, but they were running out of time. The dimensional field generator on their ship was overheating, and they needed to leave before it failed completely. As they prepared to go, Tony planted several tracking devices around the ship. If the resistance was going to fight these creatures, they needed to know where their weaknesses were. "Time to go," Jake announced. "The field won't hold much longer." They made it back to their ship just as the dimensional field collapsed. For a terrifying moment, they were solid inside the ethereal vessel, trapped in the alien crystal structure. Then their engines engaged and they broke free, racing away into space. The information they brought back changed everything. Admiral Carter called an emergency meeting of all resistance leaders across the solar system. Now we know what we're really fighting, she told the assembled commanders. They're not gods. They're not even healthy. They're parasites who have spent millions of years feeding on the faith of other species. Dr. Rodriguez had been analyzing the data from Jake's mission. Their technology is impressive, but it has limits. If we can disrupt their power source, we can weaken them significantly. How do we do that? Asked Commander Amy Walsh. We tell the truth, Lisa said simply. We show humanity what these creatures really are. If enough people stop believing in them, their power will fail. Colonel Steve Baker looked worried. That's easier said than done. Most humans love their new gods. They won't want to hear that they've been tricked. Then we'll have to make them. Listen, Lisa replied with determination. We're going to broadcast the truth to every human on Earth and throughout the colonies. We're going to show them the real ethereals hiding in their tanks, the prison cells full of ascended humans, and the museum of dead civilizations they keep as souvenirs. Karen Foster spoke up from across the room. I can help with that. I know. The temple security systems. If we can get close enough, I can hack into their communication network. The plan was risky and would require perfect timing. They would have one chance to reach every human in the solar system with their message. If they failed, the resistance would be destroyed and humanity would remain slaves forever. But if they succeeded, they would shatter the illusion that had kept their species in chains for almost a year. The war for human freedom was about to begin, and it would be fought not with guns or bombs, but with the most powerful weapon in the universe, the truth. Operation Revelation began at exactly midnight Earth time. Across the solar system, resistance fighters moved into position for the most important battle in human history. But this would not be won with weapons. It would be won with truth. Admiral Lisa Carter stood in the command center of her hidden base, watching dozens of screens showing the positions of her scattered forces. All units report status, she said into her headset. Team Alpha in position near Earth's main communication. Satellite, came the voice of Captain Jake Morrison. Team Beta ready at the Mars Relay Station, reported Commander Amy Walsh. Team Gamma standing by at Luna City Broadcasting Center, said Colonel Steve Baker. The most dangerous part of the mission belonged to Lieutenant Karen Foster. She was inside the New York Temple, preparing to hack into the ethereal communication system from within their own stronghold. If she was caught, she would disappear like so many other humans who had questioned their new gods. Dr. Ben Rodriguez had spent weeks preparing for this moment. His team had created a virus that could override ethereal communication systems and force them to broadcast human messages instead of divine proclamations. But they would only have minutes before the ethereals discovered what was happening and shut everything down. Double quotes. Karen, are you in position? Lisa asked. Ready, Admiral, came the whispered reply from inside the temple. I'm in the communication chamber. There are 3 ethereals here, but they seem to be in some kind of meditation state. Karen looked around the crystal-lined room where the beings floated in midair, connected to the ship's systems by streams of energy. She had learned over months of observation that they entered this state every night to process the worship energy they had collected during the day. Working quickly and quietly, she connected Ben's hacking device to the main communication panel. The device looked like a small metal cube, but it contained enough computing power to break through ethereal security systems. Upload beginning, she whispered. 30 seconds to full system access. Meanwhile, hundreds of miles above Earth, Jake Morrison piloted his stealth ship toward the primary communication satellite. His mission was to plant signal boosters that would ensure the resistance message reached every human device on the planet. Almost there, he reported. The satellite's automated defenses haven't spotted us yet. The satellite was surrounded by a network of smaller ethereal devices that monitored all human communications. Jake had to navigate between them carefully. knowing that one mistake would alert their enemies to the entire operation. On Mars, Amy Walsh led a team of fighters through the underground tunnels beneath the colony's main city. The Ethereals had built a temple here too, and it contained one of their most powerful transmission arrays. Amy's job was to take control of it and ensure their message reached all the outer colonies. "Remember," she told her team as they approached the temple entrance, "we don't want to hurt any humans. The people guarding this place think they're protecting their gods. They don't know they're protecting their captors." The Resistance had decided early on that they would not use violence against other humans, even those who served the Ethereals willingly. The real enemy was the alien parasites who had convinced half of humanity to worship them. Back on the asteroid base, Dr. Rodriguez monitored the progress of all teams from his control room. Banks of computers showed the status of every part of the operation. So far, everything was going according to plan. "Admiral, we're getting the first data streams from Jake's mission," he reported. "The satellite boosters are online and ready. Karen's hack is at 80% completion. Amy's team has reached the Mars Temple." Lisa nodded, but she knew the hardest part was still to come. Even if they successfully broadcast their message, they had to convince billions of humans to abandon beliefs that had given their lives meaning for almost a year. The breakthrough came at 12:47 a.m. "I'm in," Karen whispered excitedly from the temple. "The ethereal communication system is completely open. I can access everything." "Begin the upload," Lisa ordered. "All teams, initiate broadcast sequence." Across the solar system, Resistance fighters activated their equipment simultaneously. The message they had prepared began transmitting on every frequency used by human civilization. Television screens, radio speakers, computer monitors, and personal communication devices all displayed the same thing. The first image was a recording from Jake's reconnaissance mission, dozens of withered ethereals floating in their life support tanks, looking nothing like the majestic beings humans worshipped. "People of Earth and the colonies," came Admiral Carter's voice over the broadcast, "you are about to see the truth about the beings you call gods." The message continued with footage from inside the ethereal ships, the Museum of Conquered Civilizations, the laboratory where captured humans were being studied like lab animals. The computer files showing hundreds of worlds that had been tricked and abandoned by these cosmic parasites on Earth. Humans stopped what they were doing and stared at their screens in shock. In the temples, faithful worshippers watched in confusion as their morning prayers were interrupted by images of their gods. Looking weak and ancient in their mechanical life support systems, Patricia Chun, the first speaker for humanity, was giving a dawn ceremony when every screen in the New York temple began showing the Resistance broadcast. She looked around in panic as her followers began murmuring and pointing at the images. "This is blasphemy," she shouted. "These are lies created by enemies of the divine." But the evidence was overwhelming. The broadcast showed Patricia herself in a secret meeting with Zarthan, where the ethereal leader discussed humans as if they were experimental subjects rather than faithful followers. In the temple's communication chamber, Karen Foster watched the three floating ethereals suddenly become active. Their eyes opened and they began speaking rapidly to each other in their own language. She didn't need to understand their words to know they were angry and afraid. "They know," she reported to Admiral Carter. "The ethereals are waking up. They'll try to shut down the broadcast." "Keep transmitting as long as possible," Lisa ordered. "Every second counts." The Resistance message had been carefully designed to have maximum impact. It didn't just show that the ethereals were not gods. It explained exactly how their deception worked, how they fed on human worship, how they used advanced technology to create the illusion of divine power, how they had done the same thing to hundreds of other species throughout the galaxy. Dr. Rodriguez monitored the global communication networks from his control room. "Admiral, we're seeing massive spikes in data traffic. People are sharing our broadcast faster than the ethereals can shut it down. Social networks, personal messages, everything is spreading the truth. But the ethereals were fighting back. They're..." Ships began jamming communication signals in major cities. Temple guards tried to destroy broadcasting equipment. The beings themselves appeared in public, using their remaining power to perform increasingly desperate displays of their abilities. In New York, Zarthan materialized in Central Park surrounded by swirling energy. His voice boomed across the city as he tried to regain control of his human followers. "Do not listen to these lies," he commanded. "Your faith in us is being tested. Those who remain loyal will be rewarded. Those who doubt will face divine punishment." To prove his point, he gestured toward a nearby building. The structure began to glow and lift into the air, just as he had done when the ethereals first arrived. But this time, something was different. The building wobbled and nearly fell before Zarthan managed to set it down safely. His power was weakening. Across the globe, similar scenes played out. Ethereals who had once performed miracles effortlessly now struggled to maintain their illusions. Their technology was failing as human faith collapsed under the weight of the truth. Sergeant Tony Miller, monitoring the situation from a hidden position near the Washington Temple, reported what he was seeing. "The ethereals in my sector are definitely getting weaker. One of them just tried to heal a sick child and nothing happened. The people are starting to notice." The most dramatic moment came when the resistance broadcast reached the holding chambers where the ascended humans were kept. Emergency systems activated, opening the crystal prisons and releasing hundreds of people who had been missing for months. These former prisoners stumbled out of the ethereal ships, confused and frightened but alive. They had memories of being studied, scanned, and experimented on. Their testimonies, broadcast live as they emerged, provided the final proof that humanity needed. Karen Foster watched from inside the temple as the three ethereals she had been monitoring suddenly collapsed. Their life support systems flickered and failed as the psychic energy they depended on was cut off by humanity's loss of faith. "Admiral," she reported with amazement in her voice, "they're falling apart. Without human worship, they can't maintain their technology." Lisa Carter allowed herself a moment of hope. The plan was working better than they had dared to imagine. But she knew the ethereals would not give up easily. Cornered and desperate, they might try something truly dangerous. "All units, be ready for anything," she warned her forces. "They may try to destroy what they can't control." As dawn broke over Earth, humanity woke up to a new reality. The beings they had worshipped as gods for The final battle began not with explosions or laser fire, but with a desperate ethereal trying to save his dying race. Zarthan appeared on every screen and communication device across Earth, his once perfect form now flickering and unstable. "Humans of Earth," his voice cracked with strain, "you have made a terrible mistake. Without our guidance, your species will destroy itself as so many others have done. We offer you one final chance to accept our divine rule." Admiral Lisa Carter watched from her command center as reports flooded in from across the solar system. The truth about the ethereals had spread to every human settlement, and the effects were immediate and dramatic. Their technology was failing as faith collapsed, but the aliens were not giving up without a fight. "Admiral," came the urgent voice of Captain Jake Morrison from his position near Earth. "The main ethereal command ship is moving. It's heading straight for Luna City." Lisa felt her heart sink. Luna City was home to 3 million humans, including many families of resistance fighters. If the ethereals were planning to make a final, desperate attack, those innocent people would be their target. "All ships intercept course for Luna City," she ordered. "We won't let them hurt civilians." But the ethereals had one more trick to play. As their command ship approached the moon, Zarthan's voice boomed across all communication channels. "Witness the price of rebellion against divine will," he announced. "Your moon will be destroyed as an example to all who would defy us. Perhaps watching 3 million humans die will remind the rest of you why you need gods to protect you." The threat sent panic across Earth and the colonies. Even people who had just learned the truth about the ethereals wondered if perhaps they should have stayed faithful. Maybe living as slaves was better than dying as free humans. Dr. Ben Rodriguez worked frantically at his computers. analyzing the energy patterns coming from the ethereal ship. Lisa, they're drawing power from somewhere else now. Not human worship, but their home dimension. They're burning through their life support reserves to power one final attack. Can they really destroy the moon? Lisa asked. Maybe, Ben replied. Grimly, but it would probably kill them too. They're willing to commit suicide to make their point. Lieutenant Karen Foster was still inside the New York temple when she heard Zarthan's threat. Around her, the remaining faithful were crying and praying, begging their god not to destroy Luna City. But she noticed something important. The ethereals in the temple looked terrified. Admiral, she whispered into her communicator, the ethereals here are scared. I think they know Zarthan has lost his mind. They're not all willing to die for his revenge. This gave Lisa an idea. Karen, can you talk to them? The other ethereals, not Zarthan? I can try, Karen replied. She approached the nearest ethereal, a being she had observed for months. It was slumped against a crystal wall, its glow barely visible. I know you can understand me, she said quietly. I know you're not really gods. I know you're just trying to survive. But destroying Luna City won't bring back human faith. It will only make us hate you more. The ethereal looked at her with ancient, tired eyes. When it spoke, its voice was weak and sad. We are dying, it admitted. Our race has been dying for millions of years. We only wanted to live a little longer. Then help us stop Zarthan, Karen urged. Save those people on Luna City and maybe we can find another way. Maybe we can help each other. Meanwhile, Jake Morrison led a desperate charge toward the ethereal command ship. His small fleet of human vessels looked like toys compared to the massive crystal structure, but they had something the ethereals no longer possessed, the support of their people. All ships, focus fire on their main power core, Jake ordered. Ben's analysis shows it's the weakest point. The human ships opened fire with everything they had. Laser beams and missile strikes hit the ethereal vessel, but most of their weapons still passed harmlessly through the alien technology. It's not working, reported Commander Amy Welsh from her fighter. They're still too strong. But then something unexpected happened. Other ethereal ships began firing on Zarthan's vessel, Karen. Foster's conversation in the temple had sparked a rebellion among the surviving ethereals. Most of them were tired of their leader's madness and wanted to find a peaceful solution. They had lived for millions of years and did not want to die for the sake of one final act of revenge. This is Veltar of the Ethereal Fleet, came a new voice over the communication channels. We do not support Zarthan's actions. We surrender ourselves to human judgment. The battle around Luna City became a three-way fight. Zarthan's loyalists tried to continue their attack on the moon while rebel ethereals and human ships worked together to stop them. The once mighty alien fleet tore itself apart as their ancient civilization finally reached its end on the surface of Luna City. 3 million humans watched the battle in the sky above them. They saw their resistance fighters working alongside former enemies to protect innocent lives. It was a sight that would be remembered for generations. Dr. Rodriguez monitored the energy readings from his base and made a stunning discovery. Lisa, the dimensional rift is collapsing. Zarthan's ship is losing power fast. All that energy he's been drawing from their home dimension is cutting their connection to it. What does that mean? Lisa asked. It means he's trapped here, in our dimension, with failing life support and no way home, Ben explained. He's committed suicide to try to take us with him. The end came suddenly. Zarthan's command ship, damaged by attacks from both humans. And rebel ethereals lost all power just as it prepared to fire on Luna City. The massive vessel went dark and began falling toward the lunar surface. Jake Morrison made a decision that saved millions of lives. He flew his ship directly into the path of the falling ethereal vessel and activated his engines at full power. The collision knocked the alien ship off course, sending it into an empty crater instead of the populated city. Jake's ship was destroyed in the impact, but he had ejected at the last second. He landed safely on the lunar surface, becoming the first human to survive a hand-to-hand fight with a falling god. with Zarthan dead and his ship destroyed. The remaining ethereals surrendered completely. They were ancient, tired beings who had never wanted to be conquerors. They had only wanted to survive a little longer in a universe that had forgotten them. Admiral Carter made a decision that surprised everyone, including herself. Instead of destroying the remaining ethereals, she offered them a chance to live peacefully among humans. In exchange, they would share their advanced knowledge and help humanity explore the galaxy. "We won't be your gods," she told them, "and you won't be our slaves. We'll be partners working together to build something better than either of our species could create alone." Dr. Rodriguez was put in charge of studying ethereal technology and learning how to use it safely. Commander Walsh became the first human to captain a ship with both human and ethereal crew members. Lieutenant Foster was promoted to head of interspecies relations, but the most important change was in humanity itself. They had learned that gods who demanded worship through trickery and fear were not gods at all. They had discovered that the greatest strength came not from bowing down, but from standing up and fighting for what was right. 6 months after the Battle of Luna City, Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the first human exploration ship equipped with ethereal dimensional technology. His mission was to find other worlds where the ancient parasites had established themselves as false gods and help those species find their freedom. "Course set for the Zentara system," reported his navigator, a reformed ethereal named Kethel, who had chosen to help humanity make up for his species' past crimes. "Take us out," Jake ordered with a smile. "Let's go free some more people." As their ship disappeared into dimensional space, heading for distant stars, Earth continued its transformation. The temples were converted into schools and hospitals. The golden statues of false gods were melted down and used to build homes for the homeless. Humanity had learned the most important lesson in the universe, that freedom was not a gift from the gods, but a right that every thinking being had to claim for themselves. The age of humanity bowing to false gods was over. The age of humanity helping others stand up had begun. And across the galaxy, on worlds where ancient ethereals still ruled as divine masters, their subjects began receiving mysterious broadcasts that started with the same simple message: "They are not your gods. You are not their slaves. The truth will set you free." The revolution that started on Earth was spreading to the stars, and nothing in the universe would ever be the same again.